walking by the new school and all that stuff. I think that was really imperative for the kids to kind of have this looking forward to process.
All right, Green Team Nation, hanging out again, and thanks for doing so. We're just trying to do our small part and try to meet you where you're at here, however far along you are in the process already of getting in or out of your next home and onto the one you really want. And one of the things that gets sort of slipped under the rug, perhaps all too infrequently, not even to come up as a conversational piece and the conversation it deserves, is, hey, how is all this stuff that's going on at the parental level having an effect on the kids? And now we even have, fur-faced kids, right, as kind of part of that too. So I got the assembled here, Green Team faithfuls. But Jared, kick this party off for us. Like, you were a kid and you've moved with kids and you also have pets. So what comes up for you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because these conversations have typically been in the line of, okay, here's the real estate stuff and here's the mortgage stuff. But, from a mortgage perspective, we have this really cool new program where the pets don't have to sign any docs. So you can actually close your loan without your pets or kids signing anything.
Wow. Is that a Fannie or Freddie product?
Brand new. That's just Greenhouse Group exclusive. No. So rather than talk about it from a finance perspective, talk about it as a father, like you mentioned, there were a couple things that I thought were critical for us. Our kids were really young the last time we made a move, but making visits to the property in advance was kind of fun, like showing them some of the cool stuff that they could expect and walking by the new school and all that stuff. I think that was really imperative for the kids to kind of have this looking forward to process. And then we did have pets, but their transition was quite easy. We went from a condo to a house, and so it was like a wonderland for our dog. I don't think he had a bit of a problem. So my perspective is a little bit limited when it comes to that because my kids were so young. It was pretty easy. But I think there's probably some other strategies that folks with older kids can employ.
Craig, you actually come to mind right there too, because you've got a little bit older kids. I don't know exactly how old they were when you did your last move, but what comes up for you first?
Yeah, that's a good question. My daughter, gosh, how old was she when we moved there? She was only about 5 years old. So she was a little on the younger side as well, not into, first or second grade. And I think that's probably, if you can do it when they're a little bit younger, it's a little bit easier. Once they get into the first and second, third grade and on, then you have a more difficult part to manage, especially if you're moving in school districts. You're going from one part of town to a whole different zip code, new faces, new school. That's where it can be really a challenge for most families. So the younger side of things, it's not so bad. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. New exciting is kind of the thing for the kids. And that's essentially what we played up when we moved. Hey, look at this big yard. This is why we moved here, or the cul-de-sac. So for me as well, that was kind of a little more playful approach.
Now, Dave, you actually are a big kid. It's a lesser, weird known fact. I don't think we talk about it too much here, but Dave's really only like one of those, he's like that bank robber baby. Mm-hmm. I think he's only about 8 or 9 right now, but he's got that full beard, which gives you a really unique perspective on things. But maybe also true is that you just moved, right? So, and you've got Litlins. So, what's it like for the super littles?
Yeah, well, we moved with one-year-old, and then my daughter was born here in this house. So I do remember though that when we were moving, we actually had the conversation about our son Bodie and making this transition over. While he was, wasn't really a part of any decision-making process. We didn't need to bring him over here first, but what we did focus on was putting him first, because as you know, little kids, especially babies, thrive on routine and schedules. And when they get disrupted, it disrupts the entire household. So what we did is we moved in and we moved all of his room was set up almost within hours of the move. Like we focused on his room first. We got his whole bed, his whole room set up so that he was going down for his nap time and going down for bedtime at his regular hours. And I think that, it made a big difference for us because when he's not happy, nothing's going right in the household.
Yeah. What comes up for me is when I was a kid, we moved. I was 5. My brother, my only other sibling, was 5.5 years older than me. So he was 10.5. So I remember the big thing for us. I don't know if any of you guys have a similar experience when you were kids, but do you remember the whole thing around picking the room? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like we moved in, it was a 3-bed, 2-bath, right? So it was great. We got our own room because we were bunking it before. But, the whole room pick thing, like, dude, I was 5. My brother was like 10 and a half, right? So like, of course he was going to get the room, but I remember my mom was so careful because she knew how big of a deal that was. And it was so messed up too. And it explains so much because this is ridiculous. I can't even keep it together. The rooms were wallpapered. And the one my brother wanted had the blue wallpaper for the boy. And the one that I got stuck with had the pink wallpaper for the girl. And I remember my mom, like, dude, she had to have thought about that like probably 1,500 times. Like, how is she going to pitch this to me? Because I'm going to lose my when I see that they're going to try to give me the pink, deal. And I remember I walked in there and I remember I felt her energy, like being super worried about that whole thing. Like I knew something was up. Like I was walking into something like, okay, what was going on? My defense walls were up. And then I saw the pink room and I was like, oh no. Like it was the worst thing. And I remember her turning to me in that moment. She probably thought of it like on the spot. And she was like, well, we can get a lot of posters. And I was like, sold. Posters it is. All right, we're going to go posters. And I remember we got through that whole deal. And there was like a bargaining that goes on, right? And so, there's a lot of that stuff. And what, to kind of flash it forward in a more professional realm, one of the things that one of our clients actually said, because we're fortunate enough to, in our tribe have a lot of teachers and child behavioral folks and, people who do this actually for a living in that regard. And she pulled back the curtain a little bit and she had said, God, one of the most critical things to keep in mind is how powerless the move is on the kids. And, they're the ones who are being uprooted, whether you're 5 or whether you're 15, school changing or not even in school yet, right? It's powerless. Like chances are you don't want to move, right? Chances are, right? And so you're kind of getting sucked into this vortex of, all right, I guess we're moving. And one of the suggestions that was made was, in the process of the move, try to give the kid as much responsibility as possible. Right. So like if there are little moving projects that they can be the leader of, give them those and let them completely, whatever it is they want to do, have them do that. Like maybe it's like, okay, where's the portable basketball hoop going to go? Wherever it's going to go, let them have control of like that. Give them that feeling of power in little nuanced things, which will help sort of assuage the fact that the bigger picture, they're completely powerless.